Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Saturday live conversation, leadership conversation with Lorlett, Hudson, and Monwara Ali. Thank you for being here. And we're most open for you to put your comments in chat, any questions that you have. So I'm Monwara Ali. I'm a leadership coach consultant. I'm also a CEO of a small charity and a director of a CIC, as well as um, being many things around community leadership. So I'm a huge advocate of championing leadership, particularly in women. And I've have with me my lovely companion and friend, Lorlett. Over to you.
Thank you, Monwara. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lorlett Hudson, and when you get to know me, you find out every other word I talk about is leadership. I love leadership. I think leadership is everything. Everything we do is about leadership. And yeah, I've been in business now for 24 years, developing leaders from young people to midlifers, anyone who's on a mission to make a difference, anyone with a bold idea, it's right behind you. Because when you are up to big things, it's impossible to do anything by yourself. And anyone that knows me will always say one person cannot run a business. It takes partnership, collaboration, teamwork. And for me, as a leader, one of the things, first thing we have to recognize that we can't do it alone. And so for me, this is what I'm about, is helping leaders to help themselves, to help other people in order to, because, when you don't feel good about yourself, then you can't help other people. And a good conversation is good. So this is why I'm so happy to be here to share and, listen to what Manwara is up to. She's a mountain climber. And if you didn't know, you now know. She loves to climb mountains. And so today's session, we're going to be talking about what does it take in order to stay committed, and as a leader, we live into challenging times and it is quite scary at times. And, you just need somebody, partner, to really have that conversation with. So back over to you, Manwara. Tell me about what you've been up to this week, because I know what you like. You're up to all sorts of things. And how do you stay committed? You are the CEO, you are a chair, you're a mother, you do so many things. How do you stay committed? That's the key. What's your structure? Because everything is having a system, isn't it? System is what makes it work. So what's your system? And, how do you keep yourself committed?
I think my system is always realizing that I need the best people around me. I need the best support, and really, I've said this maybe in a previous live. My motto is I trust until my trust is broken. And I know that trust takes a very long time to develop. And that's part of the reason why I stay committed in many things, because I don't expect people, because we're human, it takes time for us to develop trust. We need to see evidence. We need to see that people's words and actions are in alignment before we begin to trust people. And what makes me stay committed is probably knowing that I have lots of people watching my back, and that is a bit of a game changer for especially for women who have always been self champions, women that have particularly I know that there are Asian women who resonate with me, where most of our priorities has been towards family and community. And there's always been those cultural barriers to professional development or professional growth. So I guess in a nutshell, it's the people and it's the team. I can tell you off the top of my head, I have systems that I put in place that means capitalizing and enabling others that are part of my teams to play to their strength. There are times when I can do equally as well in a particular area of strength, but I have learned not to do it. Because I
Mm.
think we get to a certain stage. I think what many of us forget, especially if we have been in the charity sector and or like the service industry, is that what motivates us is to serve others. I know I'm going to sound like a servant leader, but I think my type of leadership is a lot more than just servant leadership. Um, I think I believe in lots of different styles of leadership, but many of us are motivated and driven by serving others. We want to feel useful. We want to feel like we are worthy. However, we forget when we are sitting in the leadership helm, if you like, the chair, others want to serve us too. And I think this is where I have worked with some people, I've coached them where they don't actually get it because they're not enabling their team to serve them. You have to enable people to feel that they are also worthy and that they are making a difference. How can you enable people to make a difference if you're always trying to do it yourself?
True, true. And there is a book that I've read by Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, right? And he talks about if you want bigger results, you know, it's never about how. Don't stop and think about how am I going to get it done? How is it going to happen? It's about who. Who are you pulling along with you? Who are you, tapping into? Because the minute you start to think of who, you start to think bigger instead of yourself. The minute you're there thinking, and I never really thought about it until I start practicing it. You start to say, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get this done? How this is this? But if you stop, your minds just automatically shift because it's about who. You went from that place of, oh my God, overwhelmed to who. And then there's a level of excitement and I run a session and it was amazing, when people have a task and they think, how am I going to do this? In comparison to when you said, who's going to support me with this? There's a different feeling entirely in that sense. And the commitment grew as well because then, you have somebody that you're accountable to and that got you moving. So yeah, Monwara, there's a book for you to go and read.
Okay, I'm going to look into that one.
Not the how is who.
I'm going to look into that one. Yeah, so I mean, I guess I've been in the places where I've been the longest, I've seen the most transformative change. And because I've always mentored in the youth space from a very young age, I was very much focused towards helping others to learn and grow and develop. And I think where things changed for me a few years ago would be probably at the kickstart of 2020 was when I suddenly realized I stopped focusing on me. So, I say this a lot about the gas mask thing, put your own mask on first
Mm,
and then you can help everyone else. And,
mm,
for some people, it comes naturally because they might be very much focused on their own health and well being. But understanding, when you get to understand the dichotomy and the complexity of personalities and perspectives, I am always sitting in a leadership space, whether I'm a chair or I'm a CEO, thinking, okay, what is it in this space that I need to pay attention to? Because there will be lots of things that others can take care of. But when you have the oversight and overview, there is a lot you need to do to hold that space for others. And that means you don't put yourself first in that situation, which means that at other times you need to put yourself first. So I learned that the quickest way to encourage people on to focus on their growth and their learning and development wasn't to just give them coaching and mentoring. The quickest way was for me to invest in my own learning and development, because people are best led by example. You don't even have to. When you are focusing on your own learning and development, as you know, reflection is a very important part of my everyday. Then what happens is you are leading by example. You are, in a lot of ways, encouraging people to practice in that way. And we have to, the change happens and it takes very long. And to stay committed means bringing everyone on the same uh, level of the journey. And sometimes when you are in a leadership role, you have to be a little bit ahead. And this is where it can become a little bit topsy turvy. And that's why I say that focusing on learning and development, and everybody's learning and development, means then we get to a place where we all start then performing, and we perform at the level that is always set by leadership. The culture is always set by leadership. So if integrity isn't at leadership level, if learning and development is not at leadership level, that means people in the group won't feel safe to make mistakes. People in the group will not feel encouraged to, even a company won't feel encouraged to recruit people who may not have the level of experience but have the potential to grow with the right support. So yeah, just getting that support myself and then recognizing I've always pushed to help others grow and develop, but then I also have to have that invested in me, which sometimes means asking. And when I have asked and I haven't received, Lorlett, I've gone there and paid money and invested in me. Why not?
Oh, it's true. I mean, if you don't invest in yourself, I mean, it's like you run in an organization. Where do you get your inspiration from? Where do you get the new ideas? Where do you get new concepts from? You know, whether it's a coach, whether it's a support group, whether it's a mastermind. And, you know, for me, the whole idea is new ideas. You know, it's new ideas because if you're doing the same old, same old, same old, then after a while it's more of the same. You need new ideas, you need new inputs. I mean, even doing the shows every Saturday is giving me new ideas because we have a discussion before. So, what we're going to talk about today was a topic, you know, what is that? So, you have to have an open mind in terms of understanding, you know, what's the trend, what's happening, what's new in that sense. And if you're not learning and developing and taking yourself on, then you know you just become the same old, and then you just become boring. And you know you wouldn't like to be having the same conversation about the same thing. After a while, you think, "Oh, how am I growing?" And you know that's why they've got thousands of books on the shelves for you to get new ideas. And nothing new is under the sun, really. It's already there. You just put your own spin on it and understanding the whole idea of innovation and why it's important to innovate. So nothing is new. It's just a new
Mm,
way of looking at it with a new open mind and a new mindset. As a leader, you know, you always have to look at what's new, what's cooking, what's new. You know, what's happening in the world today. And also, you know, it's about solving those problems, isn't it? You know, you become a problem solver. And something we talked about last week, as a leader, you have to be able to manage up, manage down, manage across, and seeing the bigger picture. all the time. It's like you're standing at the top of a hill, really looking at expanding your eyes and looking at what's happening there. And it's a skill. Because some people are only able to see what's in front of them. As a leader, you have to be able to see up, see down, see left, see right, and see the bigger picture and know what actions to take by just observing and being curious.
Absolutely. And what helps in that whole perspective or approach is having strong networks. Or,
Mhm.
as they say, one of my colleagues recently said, Monwara, I want to get my hand on your black book. And
Oh, that's so funny.
I said, I didn't know I had a black book.
Mm.
It can be powerful to have allies in spaces, and you don't even know who is watching you. You don't know who actually supports what you're doing, because sometimes people, for all sorts of reasons, either professionally they can't because of their jobs, or because politically they can't. But sometimes, there are allies out there that might be far ahead of you, and they might be watching your stuff, and your stuff might resonate, and that could be the person who comes forward, gives you an uplift when you need it and when you least expect. And that's the curiosity thing. You just don't know. We, from the outside, we can look at something and it looks perfect, or we can look at an individual and we think they're on millions, and might be on millions in the Indian standard, or Indian rupee, or Bangladeshi taka standard, but they might not be by British or US standard. The reality is, we all want to serve, but most of us don't know how to enable others to serve us, because often we come from a place of, if I do that, then that shows I'm not capable. And it's actually not true. I used to think that when I was doing a lot of work, especially when I worked in the public sector. um, I worked in the youth service, and I was a senior youth practitioner, and I had three colleagues, all men, 5 to 10 years older than me, and I was 20, early 20s. And I always thought I had to know everything. So I would go in early, speak to the center manager, try and get information, go to all these meetings, try and read books. I would read what's in the news to see what was, like, always trying to stay ahead, observing the young people, the changes in lingo. I learned how to play all the different various sports that the young people taught me. And yeah, I always found, like, whatever space you're in, whatever profession you are in, you need to make an effort to understand where people are coming from. And a lot of that for me happens not just at public meetings, or senior level leadership meetings. By the way, I do read every report that I get emailed, because I'm curious. I want to know what's lying ahead. But I think also the people, conversations with people tell you a lot.
Definitely. I mean, communication, well known. It's where your power lies. I mean, somebody. When I've used been in a situation where you're sitting down and you think that person haven't really got anything to contribute, because we're humans. We make assumptions that people don't have anything to contribute. And then that person stood up, and from the time they open their mouth, you are so engaged, with what they're actually saying. I remember the night when Obama won the election, and I was just like, wow, I just was so taken with what he was saying, change is coming. Yes, we can, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I was glued to the television. I thought this man is amazing. And it was just about what he was saying, and, that's where your power lies, is what you say. And I say that all the time to people, if you want to develop your confidence, develop the way you speak, because that's what people listen to you. That's what the first thing they hear is what you have to say. You see some people, as I said, they walk into a room and just the interaction, the communication, the lyrics, as they would say, that's what makes a difference. Definitely. It's like
So
some young people,
I,
you think, yeah, you got the gift of the gab. Why you can't come to the sessions, why you can't turn up. I said, if you want to turn that around, it's amazing who you would become as a leader.
yeah, you know how to sing a song, Lorlett,
Oh yeah,
definitely.
oh yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah.
And you
Full
said
time.
that rules of engagement and the power. Just want to drill down on that. I think because people don't often focus on that reality of you know often it's a confidence gap, and when you don't know the room or you don't know the people, you're still trying to figure out, okay, where do I fit in all of this? And that horrible voice in your head always saying, well, no, like all these people are powerful and you're not. But actually, you're just equally as powerful. And often, and that's a norm. Many of us question ourselves, wondering why we're in that space. And I have to say, because you asked me this question right at the beginning, how do you stay committed in the long run? I'll tell you how. I fight not people, I fight the voice in my head. And before I don't even let it entertain me any further. I say, no, you're wrong, because I know I'm here because I have something that nobody else has. Because I actually truly believe every human being is unique. And just because somebody is not saying something doesn't mean they don't have a perspective. They probably have the most interesting perspective, could be lacking confidence, could be that leadership is not giving them an opportunity to say it their way.
And they themselves might not even know, you know, because the thing with communication, I think you always have to be so present. It's about what you're listening for and what you understand from it. Because more and more I'm learning is that people communicate in a particular way. And you, myself as a leader, what exactly is this person communicating? What exactly are they actually saying in that sense? And being able to, I remember being at university and it's about, you know, you need to deconstruct this subject. And I'm thinking, what does this deconstruction mean? What does it mean? you know, and that's the thing about communication, isn't it? You pull it apart, dissect it. What is it exactly this person? So it's really listening to understand what exactly is this person saying, because they themselves don't even realize what is it they're actually communicating. And you as a bystander, an observer, and being curious, you stop and listen. And that's why it's so important. The things Mama used to say, Proverbs cards, is so, so, so important, because it's about what exactly was our parents communicating to us in those funny sayings, and then as I got older and I became a communication student, because I studied communication, mass communication. And I'm thinking, oh, so this is what it is. It's my interpretation. And it's really about we take action based on what we think the person is saying. So we can either be upset or we could be excited. Oh, that's what Monwara meant, in that sense. So it's really about what we listen for. And also that is around being committed as well. Because if somebody communicates something and it's like, ooh, there's an opportunity here, you know, then you'll be committed to take an action. If you think, well, there's no opportunity here for me. Again, it depends on how you listen. Then there is no commitment. So, that another word for me is enrollment. When someone is enrolling to something, then they are making a decision for themselves. They actually see the opportunity for themselves. They see what's possible in that sense. So it's about understanding when you communicating as a leader, you know, what opportunity are you creating for people? So when they listen to you, what are they actually hearing? What's in it? So when Monwara said to me, okay, I know you're interested in leadership, how about us doing these live conversations? For me, it's about talking about what I'm passionate about and being committed to it. And I saw the opportunity in that. I see the growth in that. If I didn't see something in it for myself, then certainly there wouldn't be any commitment. I might be interested, but not committed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love the way you packaged that, as in the commitment and what's in it for. It has to be reciprocal. And I think if it aligns to our values and we're on the same wavelength, and our values and our passion around the subject matter, then we are always going to feel a lot more. And I completely agree with you on that one, Lorlett, because I have to say at the beginning I was like, oh, how long can I continue this, like on Saturdays? And you know what? We're human, and there are times when things will come in the way, and we can decide, because who's in charge? We are.
Choice.
And yeah.
The power of choice. You're talking about the power of choice. I think what people don't seem to understand, and it's the way we've been brought up as well. I think somebody on LinkedIn talked about this week. I can't remember who it was. The thing about no's, just become in love with no's. you know,
Mm, mm,
we
mm,
talked about that before because it's true. You know, when you say no, that means you're giving something up and you're taking on something else. So really, that no is no, not now. I'm not been doing this. No, I give that up. I let that go. But in that space, you're actually taking on something else that's going to take you further to where you are at. So it's being happy to say no, and we can spend so much time saying yes, 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 yes to something, but how effective is that? And how committed are you going to be to those yeses? That's the thing, right? Whereas when you say no, you actually say, no, I'm not going to do that. And it's about your priority as well. You say to yourself, no, I'm not going to do this. That means you then see an opportunity over there for something else and then say, yeah, okay, I'm going to take that on and I'm going to give that up.
mm, mm, mm. It is. It's what you just said is delving very much into capacity and how leaders have to be mindful that, especially people that are influencing at their leadership level, that they don't deplete their own energies and capacity. And I think it's harder and much more challenging for people who've been doing it for a very long time. I cannot speak for others, but I can say that I've, on a personal level, been very active in building my community and holding lots of different networks where people trust me, but I don't really have to do anything. There's other people doing it. And spaces like my in laws, for example, I've been always very active with my in laws. I spend a lot of time with my sister in law almost every day. And so, like, as you keep on doing, I think sometimes you forget that age is going to catch up with you and you can't continue or maintain that level of creation. And also, I think the big power that a lot of people hold in at the leadership space, that I think is very well said in the socialist world, that the biggest mistake we make in disempowering ourselves is believing we don't have power. We all hold a power, every single one of us. And I think the difference between enabling us to use our own, recognizing our power and using it, is that self leadership piece. Because if you plan and strategize ahead and you know what you're doing for the next 6 months, it's easier to say no. That's practically how I see it. But I can understand that also I work in a space which is filled with uncertainty, EDI space. You sometimes it's crisis management. Most of the times it's crisis management, and so you can't always foresee. You can plan, but you have to be prepared for uncertainties. And in those situations, you have to know where you need to cut back and where you can delegate. If you have good, strong teams around you, then you can lean on others and say, look, this is something I'm doing and this is something I'm doing. The both two things are very important, but there's a fire. I need to be present there. Can you please manage that or watch that for me? And again, it's about trust. Sometimes I have trusted people who maybe haven't had even half as as much experience, but that's irrelevant, because at the end of the day, people don't grow by already having the experience. People grow by being given opportunities. And I think at leadership level, many of us waste those opportunities to create opportunities. Am I
And
making sense?
that is so true, Manwara, because the reality is, you know, I have a paper diary. And the reason why I have a paper diary, it's what I call a week view. So when you open it, you see the full week, right? In
Mm.
that sense, I have it open, so I know automatically. I looked at that, and I have another diary upstairs, same diary, same things. So that saved me from upstairs, and I need to check. I've got an office upstairs as well. So I just looked in that and I thought, yeah, okay, I know what's what. And, part of my coaching program is the 12 months. And so one of the hardest things for a new client, that they have to get their diary out and schedule 12 coaching sessions with me, same time, not necessarily same time, same day, but, you know, every month there's a scheduled call. And, it's amazing how many people have challenges with that, just to
Mhm.
schedule 12 dates for the year. I've had people say, well, I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know. And I don't know. And I said, just commit. Just put a date. It's a date. Well, I don't know what's going to happen next month, and I don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months, and this is this. So that's the first breakthrough when you join my training program. It's how to schedule time for yourself, because when you have something in your diary and something come up, it has to be in existence. It has to be a structure for in existence. You put it in existence, that's it. What most of us try to do is trust ourselves, trust our own thinking. Oh yes, I'm gonna remember, and everything else. Yeah, I've got a call with Monwara. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then as soon as you forgot, something else come up. So in my training as a coach, the first thing is scheduling, and having structures and making sure that those are in place, because otherwise you're all over the place and you are more committed, because then it's going to check your diary and you thought, oh, I've got that schedule in there. It's not that important. I can make a phone call and reschedule with that person. Whereas if you don't have anything in existence, then what are you committed to? In that sense. I have clients that, when they first start coaching with me, the exercises, they call me every morning at 8 o'clock, so that's put them into a structure as well and organize themselves. I mean, they might seem like simple things, but for some people, it's hard to do, having a structure and operate within that structure, which give you that level of commitment. It just isn't there. Some people just don't have a structure. They don't have They don't know what time they're going to do this. They don't know what's happening and everything else. I mean, they're late for meetings, because they don't have it in a structure. Some clients, I would meet with them on a Sunday every week, for a period of time, not forever, but for a period of time. So, what have you got scheduled for this week in your diary? And we'll go through that together. And they will say, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was this busy. I didn't realize I was achieving so much. I didn't know I was accomplishing so much." There's never structure for it. So that's one of the level of commitment for me. It's having structures and systems in place that really highlight. Because if you have it in existence, you will commit to it. If you don't have it in existence, it's not happening.
And great tips there. Great tips and extremely pragmatic, Lorlett. Because that's quite telling, isn't it? And you asked me that question: how do you manage to be in so many different places? And it's that, I use my online calendar, I use my paper calendar, and not calendar, notebook, in exactly the same way. Because, and I think your point is spelling out to those listening to us, because, we're not here just to have this wonderful conversation that others don't somehow find useful and helpful, is that we all have control over how we prioritize. It's having those systems in place, and that is very much about self leadership. You have control and you lead yourself. You decide whether you're going to change something around. There are things I won't actually compromise because, if it comes to my children, I'm not going to compromise because for me, my family comes first. But there are other things which might be work related, professionally. It might be that I'm in a leadership space and I need to prioritize. And it's, if you don't have them down, you don't know where your gaps are, you don't know where, and you're right, I've been in danger as well at times of saying yes to something when I had 10 million other things going on. That happens to me as well because I'm human. Even though I have a diary and a calendar, I still can make those wrong judgments. But one of the things I do, I think, and I think some of you listening may, I'm sure, will resonate, is being able to lean on your team.
Mm-hmm.
My team are aware we meet once a week and they are aware of what my calendar looks like. And there have been times, I'm not going to name, where a team member from the senior leadership team has said to me, Monwara, you have so much on this week. And anyway, they shouldn't have access to you. And I'm like, really grateful because I know somebody else is going to step in, a space where I'm often asked to be, but I'm not necessarily the person that needs to be in that space. And I would also say that I've made that mistake in the past where I've forced myself to be in more than one place because I felt like it was my duty or my responsibility. And now I feel so much more comfortable to say no, because I see that when you say no, it frees you up to do more planning. It frees you up to think things through. So one of the things I did want us to catch up on, Lole, and you said how long-term commitments. So just to go back to rewind, and then I'm going to mention my bit. I want us to talk about critical thinking because I don't feel that there's much emphasis in critical thinking in the leadership space, especially when it comes to leading communities. Um, you said long-term commitment, and I just wanted to add, you talked about earlier, structures. You talked about uh, rules of engagement, and you talked about how understanding the people around us, but also not making assumptions. We didn't talk about resilience. And I just wonder, I would ask you this question because a long time ago I read something. I don't even remember where I read it, but it was, it said that there are three types of people: those who live in the past, those who live in the present, and those who live in the future. And the past can really affect your living in the past, can really affect you moving forward. And always remaining at a place of past traumas. Those living in the now, I mean, some people think have the best life because they they can be practical to here and now, better listeners, etc., etc. And then there are those who are future focused, and those people maybe struggle to listen more, or take in some of the no because they're always thinking about innovation and different ways of moving forward. So I was quite alarmed by something that a relative told me in Bangladesh. But before I go into that, what's your perspective on that? People either
Living,
living in the past, the
living in
present,
the
or the
past,
future.
in the present, and the future. Well, they all add value, whichever way you look at it. It's about understanding, where are you at that moment in time. So I would use, like, say, my grandmother's wisdom, for example, right? That's definitely something coming from the past. I would reflect on, oh my goodness, what would she have said? What would she have done in that sense? So I have to go back there in order to make an informed decision right now in that sense. And it's really understanding where you're at, what you're about, what values. I think the key thing is it's what's important at that time. What's driving that decision at that moment in time. Why is it important? Because right now I have to be in the present. And if I'm gonna be thinking about making a decision, then I would go back to, yeah, what would my grandmother do in this sense? And then by making that decision, I create a future. I've been able to invent a future. So it's being able to recognize you don't stay one place. You move between the processes. So where am I at this moment? Am I in the past? I need to give that up in that sense. It could be somebody said something to me 20 years ago and I'm still holding on to it and I'm not inventing a future because I'm stuck there. Oh, this is what this person said. And I'm not in the present because I'm so annoyed. I'm not even seeing the opportunity in front of me, because I'm still there in the past having a conversation. Well, this person told me that 20 years ago, and I'm certainly not going there, and I'm certainly not going to do it, and I'm not having anything to do with that, So I'm not neither in the future, neither in the past, nor in the middle. I'm there saying, nope. So I'm really stuck. you know, I'm stuck in that moment in time. So it's understanding, all three of them are important, but it's recognized that you don't stay too long in any of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. It's just he struck me when he said to me, I was communicating the vision for the future for the learning center. And I said, this is what's going to look like: 3 floors, and there'll be hundreds of women, there'll be 6 classrooms, and we will have from UK and from US, I will have people teaching online, and we'll have projectors in the village, in the classrooms, and there'll be women, young women, learning social media because I will have a volunteer in the UK who will teach that. Like, I was really spelling out a future vision. And he said to me, Auntie, there are three types of people. So I'd read about it, but he also said it. And he said there are three types of people: those who live in the present, those who live in the past, and those in the future. He said, I'm not future focused, I am present focused. If you have money and you can pay me for a job, I'm your man. It really struck me. because I
It's
never
very good.
really
You
looked
know,
at things like that.
he might think right that he's in the present, but really he's in the future because whatever money you pay him is developing a future for himself, isn't it? And understanding that. So the key thing around decision making is recognizing where are you at that moment in time and where is it going to take you. And I think as a leader, it's important to understand those three concepts, and I love it: past, the present, and the future. What conversation are we having? Because, some people, when you're having a conversation with them, oh, they haven't moved from the past at all. They're totally not in the present, not in the future. They're just stuck in the past. And you feel like saying, give that up and move on. Move on. Let's create something new. I have a question, a coaching question I have with my clients when they come to me and they're having a conversation about, my past, my boss is doing this to me, or my manager is doing this to me, or this is doing, I said, okay, so what are you creating with that conversation? you know, oh yeah, so your manager is doing this and this. My thing is, okay, I hear you. What are you creating with that conversation? There's nothing new. Come on, what you gonna do differently? What you gonna create differently? We all know people are people and they're gonna do what they do. Your manager is who he is or she is, or they're gonna be who they are. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Because talking about this person is this way and this way. So I have an activity where I invite them to recreate the manager,
Mm,
recreate them. I said, tell me five things that you like about your manager. And they stop and they think about it and they thought, okay, great. Five things you don't like about the manager. Let's think about it. All right, I said, well, forget about all the things that you don't like. Let's look at these five things that you do like, and then let's invent a future with that in that sense. So, as from tomorrow, within those five things that you like, start looking at them in that perspective, about whether they are structured, whether they are this, whatever it is, those five key things, and start acknowledging your manager about that. And if Manwara, you're my manager, Manwara, I just like the way how you turn up on time. Manwara, I really love the way you manage your diary. Oh, I really love when you say that. See that relationship shift with you and your manager. And it works. It really works in that sense because we're talking about that earlier. Acknowledgement is a very powerful thing, because we are not being trained how to acknowledge people,
mm,
especially around long-term commitment. You know, I was really, I really acknowledge you for staying late last night. I really acknowledge you for providing that new book. I really acknowledge you for making a difference. I really do this. So when we talk about long-term commitment, we have to look at who are we as a leader, and what are the things that we do that causes people want to do things for us. And it's about even going in and you got a team member, been working extremely late last night and come in early again today. Acknowledge that person by, probably buy them a bar of chocolate or something. And it's not that you're bribing them. It's just about acknowledging to say, I see what you do. I see the support that you give. I see the difference that you make. You're unique. You're different. You're such a great contribution to the team. I saw how you able to support so and so. I mean, I see the way how you manage that situation, which could have turned out to be a conflicting situation in the meeting. But you have such a skill about how you listen. You were able to deflect that conflict. Just keep on acknowledging people. That's one of the key things for long-term commitment.
yeah, it's and it's so powerful. I think it's so underutilized, so underutilized. And I had a meeting yesterday, and I brought muffins for everyone. And one of my colleagues turned up to work half an hour early so she could open the place, set up the room. I didn't ask. But she did that, and I really felt so grateful. And when I brought the muffins out, I said to she wasn't in that meeting, but I said to everybody, like I thought to myself, they'll be like, "What's going on here?" I said, "Can you take first pick?" And she was like, "Really?" And then she took, and she said, "That really made my day." And you don't know the small gestures, but I really did feel at that time extremely appreciative. And you have to find ways when you do feel appreciative that you communicate that acknowledgement, because I think when you have such a busy schedule, sometimes we're interacting with so many people in a day, we don't always find the time to acknowledge. And but it's so important that we do. So really, I mean, it's something that really stands out, Lorlett. You do really well in terms of acknowledging others. And I love to acknowledge you as well, because you, I think, were very resilient about the Saturdays at a time when I said, well, I don't know how long I can continue doing this because I might have so many other things to do. But, hey, it's growing. We're still here on Saturdays, and I'm sure there's lots of things we're sharing that will resonate with others. And I believe we're going to have a guest next week. And again, this will be another person who will bring in an amazing perspective to this conversation. And I'm excited. I'm not going to say who, but I think Lola, you know who it is. But yes, critical thinking. The
Yeah, I
role
mean,
of, I think you've been doing it for the last 10 minutes, but uh, yeah, what
yeah,
would you say?
it's important. Critical thinking mean you look beyond what's possible. You see what other people don't see. It's being able to, as I said, come back to when I was at university and that thing about deconstruct this, and you think to yourself, what does it deconstruct? I mean, you know,
Mm,
words that were used, in an academic arena wasn't anything I was exposed to. So, I struggled, but it was all right because, it's the learning. And you don't remember these things until when you're having a conversation. And so for me, having these conversations is also about my own development as well. Because then I remember things, and I'm thinking, yeah, or when you say something to me and I thought, oh yeah, how do I answer this? How do I deal with this? Whereas if you're not using your brain and you're not thinking and you're not critically, looking at what's around you, then again you can come really stuck and very complacent in your thinking. Whereas, I think conversation is the most powerful thing to be able to have a conversation with someone because it enables you to, and that comes from a very old tradition of storytelling. That's why, the older people, they were the ones who are the keeper of the heritage because they have the stories, they know the people that were before us. We didn't know them in that sense. And so it's important to have these conversations and to keep these stories alive and these sessions alive. Because as a leader, your team is listening to you. The people around you is listening to you. What conversations you're having. And the power of storytelling is so key about, how the company was, the vision, where it's going, how it was started. People love to hear that. That's why they say, I am going to tell you a story. And then, it's like when I did you for, and you got these disengaged young people and then people said, oh, they're not going to be interested. So I'm going to say, good morning, everyone. I'm going to tell you a story, and then everyone stopped, and then I just tell them what I want to tell them. It's such an engaging process. Oh, yes, I'm going to tell you a story. What is it about story, Monwara? I know we've got a short period of time. But what is it about story that really gets people excited? No matter how disengaged they are. If you just said, yes, I'm going to tell you a story. Why is it that people, what do you think? For long term commitment, what is it?
I think there's an element of curiosity. People like a surprise. People are genuinely, as humans, we are curious beings. We don't necessarily tap into it as much as we should do. It's a superpower to be able to sometimes remain open and curious to possibilities. We can become very fixated to the way things should be done, which then means that we're not very open minded about the possibilities. So storytelling has a way of grips people's imagination, and you don't really know. And if the story is told really well, it does really capture people, and I think in a lot of ways evokes emotion in them. So that's why I feel storytelling is really powerful. Although, you know, I don't know, it's maybe my experience or just the way I think. I find that people are much more impacted by personal stories than, like a generic story that doesn't really have any sort of human emotions or behavior attached to it. If I told you a story about my charity, the Wolfen Forest Community Hub, and the story was from when it was founded in 2005 and how far it's got, it wouldn't have as much maybe impact unless I mentioned some of the people behind it. There have been people who worked very hard in founding that organization. There was lots of politics at the time, and it was quite a stressful, no doubt, period of years for the board at the time to maintain a building which had was a local authority owned building, still is a local authority owned building, but pushing through just managing a building to actually offering services for the community. And it took a lot of battles externally and I think within as well, because over the years we've had lots of change internally as an organization. And several people have had an input. So we had a Dr. Zafar who was a committee member, and this is my chance to acknowledge him. I do still have contact with his family. Dr. Zafar was one of those men who were a rare community leader. He was extremely private. Nobody ever knew anything, very little about him. But he was one of those men that always was a great ally for women. So he played a huge role in empowering women into leadership roles, particularly Asian women, which was very rare in those days. Dr. Zafar passed away suddenly. We had no idea that he was suffering health problems. And I remember the board meeting a month or 6 weeks before he passed away, before the board meeting. And I said to him, hopefully I'll see you, because he was a huge advocate of mine. I felt like he was always on my washing my back, encouraging me, and sometimes sticking up for me when I didn't have the confidence. And he said to me, I said, I'll see you at the next board meeting. And he said, health willing and God willing.
Wow.
And then when I found out that he had passed away, it came as a big shock. I was just told suddenly by someone, "Did you know Dr. Zafar just passed away?" And I kept reflecting back on our conversations, and I thought to myself, there are so many hints he knew, but he didn't want to burden anyone in knowing that he was not well, or he was one of those, servant leadership. Like I say, I think there are lots of problems with servant leadership, as much as we are from that kind of, from our hearts, we are very much like that inclined. I think there are lots of problems with it as well, because there is this very strong ingrained belief that you just must do for others at the expense of yourself. And I don't think that is necessarily the right way to go about it, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not there for anybody else afterwards. But yeah, Dr. Zafar's story is very much connected to that charity. We have a bench in his memory that we had, like, with his name, and his family knew that we had given him that acknowledgement after he passed away. um, but yeah, so that's storytelling for you. I've just told you a story of one of our previous trustees, and actually in 2024 not very many people even know who Dr. Zafar is.
Well, some people do. Some people are the keeper of the heritage. Somebody will be, and that whole thing around storytelling, it's the long term commitment. Because when you think somebody's committed to make sure um, that the story remains. When we talk about the House of Commons or, Parliament or whatever it is, London Bridge, those stories are being handed down throughout the generation. And it's that long term commitment. So, what does it take for long term commitment? It's stories. It's the stories that we tell and how we keep in existence. Who is the storytellers? Who is going to be the keeper of the heritage? When you're no longer the leader of this organization, who is committed to keep the story going on? I mean, you go to any of those institutions in the cities who's been around for a long time, there is a long-term commitment to keep those stories alive. So the answer to the question is, how do you stay committed to the long term? Learn to tell better stories and empower other people to tell your stories and to share our stories.
Excellent. An excellent way of ending, and something I always ask my coaching and mentoring clients: what do you want your legacy to be?
People feel good about themselves.
Well,
you know?
storytelling is, like you said, stories, capturing those stories.
Yeah.
Legacy is very much that, isn't it? Legacy is like, how are we going to be remembered after we're gone, long after
Yes,
we're gone?
true,
So
true,
don't just
true.
sit on a leadership chair and title and not
Yeah.
make impact and influence,
Mm.
because everything you do in that role is going to be your legacy, or everything you don't do in that role will be your legacy after you're gone. So
Yeah.
that's what I kind of, if you're a leader and you're working with me and I'm coaching and mentoring you, I'm going to force you to think about your role and how you're doing it, and what is it that you're doing or not doing in your role. Because your legacy will be there whether you like it or not. People will talk about you, your stories are going to be there. But do you
It's
want
true.
to have a direct impact and influence in how your story is told or not? That is the question I shall leave with you. And Lorlett, I'm going to let you say the last words because I know you want to. I feel it.
For me, there's nothing like stories and for long-term commitment. And unfortunately, the art of storytelling is dying, and we don't appreciate the elderly like how we used to. Because somebody's there before us, so they know the past, what you're creating in the moment and what's the future you're creating with those stories is important. And that's what gives the long term commitment. Because, when you go for an interview and they tell you the story about the company or how it was, how it started, the inspiration, I mean, when I listen to so many founders, this story is phenomenal. Sometimes it comes out of desperation. Sometimes it comes out of really sadness. People decided that something happened. Like with you, Monwara, you really want to make a difference to women, and your learning center is going to be that. So even after you're gone, people are going to be saying, oh, she had a passion for women development. So it's a story, around the long-term commitment. This what happened, the remarkable story after you're no longer around is what makes a difference. So we answered our question. What does it take in order for long-term commitment? It's just the stories that we tell and continue to tell. And on that note, I look forward to seeing you next week. And keep on listening, keep on learning, and keep on developing. Have a good week. And Monwara, you want to finish?
You've done it.
Good. Well, look forward to seeing you all next week. Look forward to it and take care and have a good one from sunny Jamaica.
And from, I think it's kind of sunnyish London.
All right, then.
Enjoy your
Take care.
Saturday. Bye
Have a good
bye.
one. Okay, bye-bye. Bye.